in 1 minute. Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com.
Okay, here we go. Another week up and running. It is Monday, March 4th, 2013. Didn't that idiotic rodent, Punxsutawney Phil, say we were going to have an early spring? I don't think so. So, at any rate, it's got to show up relatively soon. I'll look forward to it. At least we got some sunshine today, intermittently. Hope you guys had a good weekend. And now begins another week. Last week ended with, of course, the announcement from Mayor Ravenstahl that he would not seek re-election, despite the fact that he had launched his re-election campaign a little over 2 weeks before, I believe. So, I don't know. I got a feeling we're going to start seeing candidates crawling out of the woodwork by the time the dust settles. Heaven knows how many will be there. And it certainly does then change the mathematics of the race. I'd be curious and or interested to hear any of your reactions to the mayor's leave-taking. I also, I guess, have a few thoughts of my own. I found it interesting that I don't know that I've seen him look more relaxed. I expected there'd be, emotion and tears. If there was any emotion, it was clearly a sense of, you could tell, just liberation. I believe he even said that. He said he already felt somewhat unburdened. He must have really hated that job. My guess is he had a ambivalent relationship to the job. He, of course, was cast into it. He was not prepared in any way. I mean, emotionally or in any way, experientially. How old was he? 26 years old, I believe. And who knows if he ever would have sought that position on his own, but he would have sought it as a much older man. I don't know. After listening to the whole thing, I felt sorry for him by the time it was over. I thought, geez. I mean, I think because you're 26, you become the mayor of a major city. You are given an extraordinary amount of attention, which, if we're to believe him, he really is not comfortable with, nor, I believe, was his wife. It is conceivable that the elevation to the mayoralty may have cost him his marriage. I don't know. I believe him in that it took a toll on him. I think he liked a lot of the trappings of being the mayor. And that was apparent in his early faux pas with, forcing himself into Oakmont to meet Tiger Woods, The SUV incident, taking friends in a city vehicle out to a Toby Keith concert or something. That kind of stuff. But it was clear that he never really was sort of engaged. And I think a lot of people witnessing it saw that this was a guy who never sought the office initially. Once he got it, there was enough there that he wanted to stay. And don't forget, you become surrounded by people who are dependent on you retaining your position for their livelihood. And he relied a great deal on his staff. I don't know. I think psychologically it'd be fascinating to really understand his relationship to this job that he has now said he is not going to seek to retain. Obviously, the timing of his change of heart leads all of us to suspect that it had something to do with the FBI snooping around and with strange debit cards and credit cards and monies not properly allocated. And I don't know. I mean, there's so much we don't know. We don't know if, in fact, he will end up being ensnared in the ongoing investigation. But that was one relieved young man, I'll tell you, on Friday, at least momentarily relieved. Someone who sees light at the end of the tunnel. And frankly, speaking as a resident of the city, I'm thrilled, too, because I want someone in the office of mayor who really wants the job because they want to change things, because they have ideas. And you never got that sense with Luke Ravenstahl. Never. And even the things that he's most proud about are not things he necessarily initiated. The Pittsburgh Promise, which is a wonderful program, but that wasn't his idea. That came to him from then Superintendent of Public Schools Mark Roosevelt. The mayor said, okay. And yes, he can claim that. But, I mean, he's not. You look at a Peduto who's, much more wonkish and has ideas. He has dreams. He reads voraciously about possibilities for cities in transition and what is possible here and there and how to, and that is an engaged executive. That would be an engaged executive. I suspect Mr. Lamb is not unlike that as well. So you don't just want the people who want it for the sheer ambition of it, but it seems to me you want somebody very unlike Luke Ravenstahl, who, again, did not seek that position initially, but once you're in, I guess there's enough enticement there to want to retain it until there's too much attention and your dislikes of the job trump your pleasures in the job. I don't know. It's going to be, for those of you who like watching such theater, it's going to be a very interesting primary season. So those of us who do spend our time yapping about it and or reporting on it are very happy. I'm sure this is going to be a fascinating season. So Jack Wagner, not surprisingly, is mulling getting in. His niece, Chelsea, says she might if Uncle Jack doesn't. And then there's, who else? A ton of others. I think Ricky Burgess has made some mutterings. There's the mystery candidate that Luke referred to, the person he wants to be, and I can't imagine who the heck that is. Somebody has said it was Honorado. Why the hell would Dan Honorado, who ran for governor, who was county executive, which actually is a is a meatier post than the mayor of Pittsburgh, and is now apparently getting paid $1 million a year or thereabouts at Highmark. Why the heck would he want to get back into that? I don't know. I can't figure it much. But it's going to be interesting watching this thing play out. It is. Joseph, what do you mean? He just he just emailed me, God bless you for your sneeze. I didn't sneeze, did I? I sound like I could have because I sound very stuffed up. We have a call. Do I have a gentleman caller? Hello.
Hello. Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
I don't want to change the subject, but you're talking about politics. President Obama, I am so disappointed in the man. And I've been a lifelong Democrat. I've voted for Carter twice and held my nose, and Dukakis and all them funny guys. But let me tell you what. This man, on the campaign trail, said about Social Security and Medicare, he wasn't going to touch it. Now he's going to throw it out to the Republicans and let them cut it. Now, he hasn't done it yet. I realize that. But why does he give away all the goods real fast? I don't understand the man. He just, I don't know. He's terrible as a negotiator. He does the same damn thing. He's caving. He's caving already. I say let's focus on the real problem, why the deficit is where it is, because of this stupid wars that we fought. Let's cut the defense. We can cut it in a way that it doesn't hurt the actual defense. We've got a lot of bloat in that defense. Let it go through. But it just irritates me how this man operates. He does the same damn thing every time. It really makes me hard to vote next time. I'm considering not voting anymore. I just about had it with him.
Okay, well, he won't be running, so you don't have to vote for him.
It doesn't matter for him. I'm talking about any Democrat or Republican. I'd never vote for, but...
Well, I think you just are one of a gazillion Americans who, looking on at the total dysfunction in our government, has just about had it, right? I mean, join the crowd.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Join the crowd. Okay, I understand exactly what you're saying, although I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. I hadn't heard him.
Oh, yeah, he just made a remark about he's okay with cutting Medicare and Social Security. I don't know what he means by that, but, he gives away the farm. It's like, I don't get the guy. And another thing, how come Wall Street and the whole mortgage thing, how come those people don't pay the blunt of it? They're the ones that caused the recession, but nothing happens to them.
Well,
that's why you can't believe this whole thing with politics. It's just it's smoke and mirrors all the way around.
Yeah, I cannot.
I don't know what to say.
Well, no,
we'll
you said it. Thank you.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye. I can't disagree with much of what you said. I'm not quite clear about the specifics of what you're talking about that Obama has suggested about Medicare or Social Security, but yeah, he never struck me as a great negotiator either. But he's certainly coming on stronger since his reelection than he did in his first term. I don't know. I mean, I feel your pain. I feel your pain. This is before you let your anger go too much to him. I mean, this is a guy who can't he can't do his job because he has this unbelievably recalcitrant, wounded, slightly crazy opposition party. I don't know. If I were Obama, I would be on so many pharmaceuticals trying to keep my head together. I don't know how the hell you keep from going insane. I'm serious. I mean, those of us who are looking on are going insane. He's in the middle. He literally has to deal with these people. And while I understand you don't appreciate the way he appears to be doing it, I don't know what the hell the guy's supposed to do. I really don't. I don't know what's to become of us. You can't stop voting because that helps Republicans. These people have got to be pushed right over the edge that they're heading to. They've got to give them a little push. Don't in any way help them. Part of what the Republicans have always tried to do is suppress voter turnout, right? Well, think about what you just said. I'm thinking of not voting. That suppresses what? A Democratic vote. I think the Republicans are very smart about knowing how to make things so hideous, so ugly, that the voters do turn away in total disgust and abdicate their power, and we do have power, their power to the people who control things. Now, back to your why don't the mortgage guys and the Wall Street guys, why don't they ever pay? It's always the poor people who pay. The victims just get victimized further. The obvious answer is, look, them that's got have their hands on the tiller. Them that's got the money, the power, the access, you know, that 1%, they run things. So, of course, when they run things into the ground, as they did, they're not going to be punished. They're going to be helped. By whom? By us, the taxpayers, who they screwed. We're going to bail them out with our tax dollars because, as we've been told, they're too big to fail. If they fail, everything comes crashing down. Obviously, something's terribly wrong with this picture. Terribly wrong. But our system has become corrupted, and maybe always was, and maybe every government to a certain extent is. I don't know. Can anyone come up with a perfect government at any time in history of mankind? One that really worked as it was supposed to, that was free of graft and free of the kind of corruption that we see so readily playing out not only in our city politics, our state politics, our federal politics. People are people, and the systems we create are systems created by very imperfect beings and consequently are imperfect themselves. This is why total discouragement is not a good idea, even though it is an understandable reaction. Because the more we, the people, the little guys, cede, C-E-D-E, cede the field to the ones that have the power, we just play into their hands. I don't know. It's, if you're a relatively rational soul or a sensitive soul, it is very hard to look, very hard to observe, and very hard to want to maintain a presence in the circus that is our politics. But again, to abdicate, to surrender, to leave the field is to leave the field to them. Then they win by default. You can't do it. You just can't do it. Please. Man, while I was doing all that jabbering, there was another little thought in my head that kept trying to scream through, and don't forget to say something about, and I can't remember what it was because it did get drowned. Don't forget to say something. Ugh, I hit myself in the head. So it'll come back, but it was something about our dysfunctional politics. I mean, I talk about the Republicans, but there's not a day that goes by that there's not another indication of the kind of total stupidity that is rampant in the Republican ranks. And there was a little something I came across this morning. And this is a Republican from Washington State. He's the ranking Republican member of that state's Transportation Committee. And he actually said that he thinks bicyclists pollute more than cars. Now, how stupid do you have to be to make a remark like that? Bicyclists pollute more than cars. And he says it's because when you're riding a bike, you're perspiring, your heart rate's going up. I'm not kidding. And that results in emissions of carbon dioxide from the rider because you're going, well, is that not CO2? I ask you. So he says, you bicyclists who are so high and mighty and think you're like, green and doing it, you are polluting by riding your bike. Now, never mind that this has no basis in fact at all. And there are people who've actually measured like how much an average bicyclist puts out in CO2. And if you're a meat eater, if you're a real carnivorous bicyclist, you put out a lot more CO2 than someone who's a vegan on a bike. I mean, a beef eater bicyclist can, if they really are chewing down on nothing but beef day and night for weeks and months on end, can almost equal, I think, a car's output. I don't know. That's more nonsense. But, there was also a thing today where somebody compiled the 10 stupidest thing Republicans have said just in the last month. And apparently this guy just does this every month. He looks for a remark. And it's beyond comprehension. I should have cut him out, shouldn't I? There was one from another state guy, Republican, who was arguing for another draconian measure to prevent women from having access to safe abortions. And he was saying something about, when a baby is lifted out of a woman's abdomen during a cesarean section, that is the largest organ that exists in the human body. Now, right there, that doesn't make any sense. What's he talking about? And it turns out he's talking about the baby as an organ, I think. It didn't, whatever. It was again showing this total lack of comprehension that so many Republican men, I'm sure Democratic men do too, but they don't talk about it as much, the Republican men have about the female anatomy and about even how babies are made or not made. It's mind-blowing. And this is what happens when you don't allow real sex education. You get generations of idiots who literally do not know how it works. And yet they're legislating and telling doctors what they can and cannot do, or opining about viability of fetuses like they know. Incomprehensible. Okay. How's about a quick little break? I'll take a guzzle of my Diet Coke here, and we'll be right back.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
For the millions living with COPD, breathing becomes a real struggle. COPD stands for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, but you may have heard of it as chronic bronchitis or emphysema. Over time, it makes it harder and harder to breathe until you feel like you're breathing through a straw. COPD is the 4th leading cause of death in the U.S. It kills 1 person every 4 minutes, and it took my grandmother. An estimated 24 million Americans are affected, but as many as half of them don't even know it. It's a race against time to spread the word about this serious disease. If you're over 35 and have ever smoked, you could be at risk. The good news is, there are steps you can take to improve your symptoms. I'm Danica Patrick, and I drive for COPD. Take action today to breathe better tomorrow. Join the movement at driveforcopd.com, take our screening questionnaire today, and talk to your doctor.
Pittsburgh City Paper is available now. Pick up one today for our special summer camps preview section. Plus, Brick Floyd, Indigo Girls, Black Grace, and Tenacious D. Pittsburgh City Paper available at over 1,700 locations throughout Western Pennsylvania and on the web at pghcitypaper.com and on your smartphone at citypapermobile.com.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Oh, I remember the other thought that was trying to elbow whatever it was I was saying aside while I was saying it. And that was in regard to the callers saying, you know, what the heck, these big guys never pay for the mess they make and we end up paying and blah, 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 blah. It is so true. The stories in the papers today are just rife with evidence of that, about how the sequestration will harm the things that will really get hurt are not things, they're human beings. They are programs that aid the least of us. And the least of us mean the poorest people. They're the homeless people who will become homeless as a result of this, potentially. And people who were homeless but managed finally to get a foothold in a shelter somewhere, and because of the cuts that will come, they'll find themselves back out on the streets. Babies, pregnant women, the elderly. It is the least of us who will pay for this toddler-like tantrum that is the House Republicans. And their constant just, no! And they have managed to grind it all to a halt. They're not getting hurt. They got insurance. They get vacations still. They do nothing. They get paid for it. They do nothing but screw things up. They get paid for it. Would you like a job like that? I would like a job like that. I go to work every day. Well, maybe not every day. Every once in a while, I sit around and I, screw things up, throw wrenches into machinery, and then I get this huge paycheck and great benefits. It's a great gig. Marge writes, I never thought the mayor was the best man for our city, so I wish him well. Let's move on. Okay, let's hope we can. And what did you think of Bob Woodward's claim of being threatened by the White House? I thought he was a big boy. Well, he's obviously a bit of a crybaby, isn't he? That was ridiculous, and he was made to look foolish when the threat was published for all of us to see. It wasn't a threat at all. In fact, it was so not a threat, it was like a nice guy saying to him, hey, Bob, I'm really sorry, I lost it, and blah, blah, blah. And let me tell you, just as a friend, I really think you're barking up the wrong tree here. You're going to regret what you're trying to do here. This just isn't right. I'm just telling you, I know you might want to hear it. It was so clearly not a, you're going to regret. That wasn't the tone of it at all. At all. And Woodward knew it because his response back to that, you'll regret it email, was, oh, you don't have to ever apologize to me, Gene. We're friends. How are the kids? Everything's fine. And then he goes and says that he got threatened. Maybe he's losing it. I don't know. Maybe he's losing it. That was pathetic. I mean, what stature he had in my head has been greatly diminished. You you can surf on that extraordinary job you did way back when with Bernstein in tow, helping to take down Richard Nixon. But, at some point, Joseph is writing, I sneezed. I did not. Did I?
I don't remember.
Oh, maybe I did. Not on air. Right before the show started. Oh, okay. So you were watching. You saw something like that. Okay. Thank you. God bless you too, Joseph. I'm sorry. Because I don't think I've ever sneezed on air. Maybe I did once. I don't know. Chuck writes, what better way to make sure the Republicans don't lose the House in 2014 than to allow the sequester to happen, consequently killing the economic recovery and putting a world of hurt on Democratic voters? Okay. So you think that's their calculation they've made. We'll screw things up so that their voters, the least of us, among us, are hurting. And then they won't be able to rally them to vote for their candidates because they'll say a pox on them, like our caller said to hell with them. Chuck writes, after watching the Sunday political shows, especially Boehner's, I don't know how you can start a day watching any of that kind of thing. I don't myself, but thank you for reporting on it. Boehner's appearance on Meet the Press. I'm convinced that this is the new Republican strategy. Allow the sequester, kill the economic recovery, blame it on Obama, and take the House again in 2014. By the way, this supposed strategy that the White House has to take the House, because they realize they can't get anything done if they don't get rid of these babies with their tantrums and their no. And yet, I don't think it'll be easy to pull that off. I don't know that the Democrats can take the House, but then what do I know? But, Chuck, I see what you're saying, and it's hard to argue with. It is hard to argue. Oh, Lord. You think I said, where is the perfect government? Currently, if I say once more, kill me, will you? Have you been reading about the Italian government? Jeez. Well, they got Berlusconi, who I thought was the comedian in the crowd, but no, they actually have a comedian who now is in a position to either form or not form a government, and apparently he doesn't want to play with these people. He says, you have so screwed up our government, the Italian government, why should I make deals with you? And because it's a parliamentary system, that means that nothing's moving forward. The EU is freaking out because I want to say he was a clown, but I think he's a comedian, who is now elevated. I think he got more votes than Berlusconi did. Berlusconi, what a joke is that? So, I don't know. It's not just us. It's not just us. Oh. What? Tim writes the quote about the woman and the largest organ was a woman representative, Mary Sue McClurkin, who supposedly said, when a physician removes a child from a woman, that is the largest organ in a body. That's a big thing. That's a big surgery. You don't have any other organs in your body that are bigger than that. What the hell is she talking about? She's equating the baby with an organ? The baby's an organ? Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz? All right. Here's an interesting question, and I'm afraid the answer is sickening. But Tom wrote, What happens to all the money? What happens to all the money that Luke has in his re-election chest? And in fact, he has close to $1 million. I believe he has a little over $900,000 that was raised from people who wanted to fund his re-election race. Well, now he's not running. So what do you do with that $900,000? The fact of the matter is, amazingly, he can pretty much do whatever he damn well pleases with it. And that's got Tom all confused because he said, well, then what is Jesse Jackson Jr. doing in going to jail for? Because wasn't Jesse Jackson Jr.'s crime that he used campaign funds to buy himself presents and $45,000 Rolex watches and stuff like that? Yes, that is what he was convicted of. But here's the way it works in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I believe. By law, Luke can give up to $8,000 to another candidate running for mayor. I guess $4,000 in the primary and then $4,000 in the general election. So some of that can go to another candidate. Now that begs the question, if you gave money to Luke Ravenstahl's campaign, it's because you wanted Luke Ravenstahl. You wanted to help that campaign. And if Luke turns that money over to, let's say, Michael Lamb, well, you didn't want to support Michael Lamb. So he now has your money, and he can funnel it to somebody who you do not want your money to go to. And that seems like so wrong. So wrong. It seems ethically that what he should have to do is return the money to you, right? Here, you gave me this because I said I was running for re-election. Now I'm not running for re-election, so thank you very much. Here it is. So he can give some of it to another mayoral candidate. He can give up to $4,000 to any other candidates in any other race. Like he could give $4,000 to somebody he likes who's running for city council. He can give $4,000. All that money that was given to him, he can now, I guess he has. And if it comes to giving it to, there are limits in the city. He can't do more than the $8,000 for a mayoral race. He can't do more than the $4,000 for any of the other races in the city. But when it comes to the state, there are no limits whatsoever. So Luke could take that entire $900,000 and give it to his brother for his re-election to the state legislature. And I don't know that he's allowed to buy Rolex watches with it, but the fact is he is under no compulsion whatsoever to give the money back to the people who gave it to him to do something that he now is not going to do. And that just strikes me as so ridiculous. And there again, that's the powers that be being the powers that be. Anyone who came up with that, as that is how you would handle something like that, an aborted campaign where you have all this money, well, they ain't one of us, are they? They're one of them. Oh, we got this treasure chest. Yeah, but we're not using it anymore. Well, who cares? We got this treasure chest. Oh, dear God. Ray writes, Lynn, I had to pull over. Bicyclists pollute more than cars. Well, Ray. Yes. You aren't listening to? I'll give you his name. That would be Representative Ed Orcutt, Republican, state of Washington, and the ranking member on that state's transportation committee. He thinks bicyclists pollute. It's like Reagan thinking the trees were the biggest polluters. So Ray writes, so I wonder if I can kill myself by riding a stationary bike in a closed garage. Well, maybe you could, but at the rate I ride, I don't think I could. I wouldn't be putting out enough. Ray says, I swear they wear stupid like a badge of honor. Yeah, they do. That's what's so amazing. It's what's so amazing. And then if you jump on them, as has been noted many times before, they double down. They'll never, if you bring facts to the table, they just dig in. They dig in. Ray writes, if they don't know carbon monoxide from carbon dioxide from fluorohydrocarbons, then they should stick to bashing gays and minorities and leave the science to the grown-ups. Well, yeah, Ray, but yeah. Look there's a ton of them in the Congress of the United States now. And there's gazillions of them in state legislatures all over this country. And they sit on school boards. They're everywhere. And they are in positions of power and in positions of power to make policy. And this is when you start sort of rethinking, is democracy such a good idea? You let clueless people vote and they elect other clueless people? I don't know. Ed writes, do you think that Republicans might be playing a game where they might work on giving back sequestered funding for programs that voters demand be restored? That way they can speak from both sides of their mouths. For example, we saved you all of this money through the difficult process of sequestration. We're the good guys, see? And now you, the voters, have spoken. And now we can also say that we agree with you that and are giving you all the programs you have said you want. All right. Ed, I'm having a little trouble following this. Why? Remember, the Republicans aren't really about saving money. No, they created the deficit we have. Bill Clinton handed them a big surplus. And then they started 2 wars that they didn't pay for. And they did the Medicare prescription drug program that they didn't fund. The Republicans, again, talk about, yeah, sure, they always talk from both sides of their mouth. The problem is that the people who are supposedly listening to them aren't critically listening to them. And we can argue that media in general, and the mainstream media, tend to not call them on the kind of absolute hypocrisy of some of their statements and positions, and instead treat them with a measure of respect. So, yeah, Ed says, remember, they aren't really about saving money. They're about doing away with entitlements, and the voters can be easily manipulated. Just throw the 47% a bone. Well, I don't know. Hey, man, I don't know anything more than you do. We're all sitting here looking at this train wreck, and it's hard not to, want to avert your gaze. But again, I say, that's what they want you to do. So do not. We'll take a quickie. Be right back.
Stick around for more with Lynn Cullen Live after this.
Go to bergbargains.com for great deals on museums, shows, and meals from your favorite local restaurants. This week only, get discounts up to 60% on shows at the Opera, Symphony, and City Theater. bergbargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. bergbargains.com.
Packers.
Vikings.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we make a real difference in the building blocks of life. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly so do our communities. Real change won't happen without you.
Live United.
So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
I thought something that was really, really smart got reprinted in the Post-Gazette yesterday. Timothy Noah in the New Republic. And he says that Woodward and some of the others who are trying to pin the sequestration on Obama. Well, he's the one who came up with this idea, are failing to recollect why he came up with the idea, if in fact he did. And here's what he says. They're forgetting that the sequester was a ransom payment. We can argue about whether it was wise for the White House to pay ransom to persuade these Tea Party-inspired Republicans to permit a routine debt ceiling increase on which the world economy depended. Remember, that's where the sequestration... Because, again, these 2-year-old Republicans refusing to allow the debt ceiling to be increased, which could have taken down the world economy. So Obama, the only way he could get them to relent on that was to say, okay, well, if in, 3 months, 4 months, I forget what it was, we haven't figured out how to do this or that, then we'll do this scary sequestration thing. And it's so scary that, of course, none of us will allow it to happen. He wasn't factoring in that he was dealing with 2-year-olds. So this guy says the sequester was a ransom payment that Obama agreed to avert a default on U.S. treasuries and the onset of a global depression. You got to remember context. You got to remember history. And the only thing I'll fault him for is actually thinking that when sequestration came, reared its ugly head, that he actually thought that then the Republicans would act like grown-ups and, of course, not allow it, and would come to the negotiating table and work like grown-ups to get something done. Obama continues to be too generous in his assessment of his opponents. I guess he just can't get it through his head how recalcitrant, obstinate, obfuscatory, how disgustingly ridiculous these guys are, how dangerous they are. Okay. Oh, my God. Should I say anything about Dennis Rodman and Kim Jong Un? Or should I just leave that to Saturday Night Live? I mean, it's... and Jon Stewart. It's really way out of my... God almighty. So I ask you, clowns running the world. There's the head of a nuclear-powered nation that has nuclear weapons, and the only American he's talking to is Dennis Rodman. Now, that's why those of us who are sort of rational people sometimes just can't understand what's going on in the world, because there's people like Berlusconi and Kim Jong Un and you know, clowns everywhere in all these positions of authority and power, and they're running things. And not to mention just the greedy SOBs who are running things too. You got the lunatics, the greedy ones. You got a lot of scary people, and they've got power. And us poor schmoes sitting here essentially at, you know, I know we feel powerless, but that's where we go wrong, because we do have power. Again, they want you to feel powerless because the powerless do nothing. Those that feel they have power, or if they get themselves together with others, will have power. Those are the people who these clowns worry about. But if they get you so disgusted, so you've long stopped even looking, you pay no attention, and you know, I mean, we all know people that really have done that. They don't vote. They've had it. Forget it. It's all corrupt, it's all this, it's all that, blah, 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 so they pull out. They, again, I'll say this till I'm blue in the face, that is what they want you to do. Listen, Rodman about Kim sounds like he's talking about what I was saying about Luke Ravenstahl, how he wasn't ready for office. He was a young kid thrust into this position. Here's Rodman on Kim Jong Un. The kid's only 28. He's not his dad. He's not his grandfather. He's just 28 years old. Yeah, well, that's true. He's not his kid. He's a great guy, says Rodman. Oh, dear Lord. I don't know. Some things just sort of stand on their own, any further commentary. Although I'm sure I missed Saturday night. Okay, here's more the clownishness of politics, okay? The Harlem Shake has become part of Egyptian politics. Oh, dear. Protesters and activists showed up at the Muslim Brotherhood's Cairo headquarters on Thursday, donning Islamist garb and Mickey Mouse masks before gyrating wildly, doing the Harlem Shake. Well, the guys inside the Muslim Brotherhood, witnessing this display intended to ridicule them, were not taking it. And so they put together their Harlem Shake performance, which is on YouTube. And, oh my God, the guy out in front who is shirtless and very heavy is frightening looking. And this is inside a very fancy looking office of the Muslim Brotherhood. They're all doing the shake. Now, it says right here, and who am I to deny this? Young activists throughout the Middle East are adopting the Harlem Shake as a form of protest against ruling Islamist regimes. Last week, students at schools in Tunisia clashed with police, trying to shut down Harlem Shake events. 4 students were arrested for doing the Harlem Shake in Cairo after stripping down to their underwear. Also, you may have seen that 25 miners in Australia have been fired for doing a Harlem Shake video underground. That's really a shame because those are well-paying jobs. They're dangerous jobs, but they said they make 6 figures, those miners. And they got canned for doing a Harlem Shake video on company time. Gee whiz. See, the world, I'm sorry, I will quote Cole Porter. The world has gone mad today. Now, think of when he wrote that. He wrote that in the 20s, I think, or the 30s, almost 100 years ago. Oh, my God, almost 100 years ago. The world has gone mad today. And good's bad today. And day's night today, and like that today. And and I have been saying for how many years, I feel like we've fallen down the rabbit hole. But I guess what we need to keep in mind is, this is not so different than I guess it's always been. Because the one common denominator is human beings. Human beings. Oh. Well, what else I got? Shall I spare you the woman who eats deodorant? Okay, I will. It's an addiction. It's an addiction. When she gets stressed out, she can't help it. She's got to eat deodorant. She eats about half a stick a day. She's 19 years old. This is true. I've seen video of her eating deodorant. And she looks like she's in ecstasy when she's eating it. And she even found out the spray kind works for her, too, although it sort of stings. Meanwhile, her doctors told her, you're going to kill yourself. Deodorant's full of lead and other kinds of minerals. I know we all have our vices. And some people have very creative vices. They're different than yours or mine. You know, those of us who just do the usual vices, we're not showing much imagination. Truly. So there was a piece in the Sunday paper written by a roboticist from CMU, and it was about what life might look like in 2040. And it's mind-boggling, it is, and it will bear no resemblance to our life now, except the common denominator will still be there. Humans. But the robots. We will be so much more dependent on these instruments. And they will be everywhere. They will be everywhere. They will be in objects in our homes. They will be in our clothing. They will be, in our, maybe embedded in us. Robots will be everywhere. They'll be in the sidewalk. They'll be in, and the things that they will be able to do for us and tell us are, remarkable. But on the other hand, it's friggin' scary. I happen to be with a roboticist. Is that the way roboticist? Maybe, sounds right. Yesterday, around noontime, after having read that article, I was with a guy who also was a roboticist at CMU. And I was talking to him about this, and with us was an artist, an older man, an artist. And we started talking about the human aspect, the human toll that this will take. And I can't say we came to any conclusions, but the roboticist said, look, I think about this kind of thing all the time. They know the genie's out of the bottle. And there's no stopping this process. Where it actually leads, who knows? He was maintaining that a robot can write. The artist said a robot will never write poetry. And he said they already do. And the artist says that's not poetry. He says it sure looks like poetry. And they'll be able to draw paintings. And it'll look just like wonderful paintings. And the artist was adamant. He said, You cannot call any of that art or poetry because it's not coming from, you don't know what their motivation was. They don't have motivation. They don't have, you can't, and you could see, and they were going toe to toe. And we came down to what will a robot not be able to do what will be left to, that will be considered human? What will constitute humanness if robots will be able to do pretty much everything we do? And of course, we came up with the usual love. We can love. Emotion. Although robots, there's stuff where their robots are getting closer to, they'll be feeling measures of emotion. Don't worry about it. But yeah, love. And we finally, because I see my time is up, the artist retreated a little bit, threw up his hands, and came down with, I thought, was a pretty definitive thing of something that we could do that a robot never could. And that is this. No, and I'm sorry if it's going to offend some people. A robot will never know the satisfaction of taking a really good crap. And that might be all we got on them. That's it for me. My sister tomorrow, and have a great day, guys. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.